Mike Wolfe of American Pickers hugs Frank Fritz in a lovely and legendary moment before co-star was sacked from the program. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another video. I hope everyone's having a great day. Before watching the video, please subscribe and like it. Mike Wolfe, an American Pickers celebrity, and his former co-star Frank Fritz had some wonderful moments on the reality show together. An endearing video of Mike and Frank conversing as brothers was uploaded on American Pickers' official Facebook page. The 6.5-minute video clip from the History Channel series depicted Mike, now 59, and Frank, now 57, traveling to see the legendary rock band Aerosmith. The antique archaeology crew restored the music group's vintage transport van. When Mike's shop manager and co-star Danielle Colby, 47, called him while he was on the road with Frank to inform him that Aerosmith wanted to buy the van, he was overjoyed. Aerosmith wants to use the refurbished van for their upcoming residency. American Pickers star Mike Wolfe actively promotes his career away from the show. Mike was so excited by Danielle's news that he briefly placed both hands on Frank's shoulder while driving. He looked to try to draw Frank into a hasty hug. The Facebook page for the unscripted TV show has recently been updated with numerous clips from previous episodes in which Frank appeared. On August 12, the official American Pickers Facebook page posted a throwback footage of Mike demanding that Frank relax before inspecting a new old item. Frank freaks out. Frank grew nervous as soon as the childhood friends drove up to the home of Tim Corwin, a member of the famous bubblegum band Ohio Express, in their corporate van. Frank tried to keep his cool when he saw the BSA Lightning 650 motorcycle and Tim in the latter's backyard barn. He looked to calm down as he exited the automobile. Frank told Mike to be cool as he exited the van, as if he was the one who was overly concerned. Mike answered no. You be cool to Frank as he exited the van, showing that he was not as apprehensive as Frank. Even though Frank had told Mike that he would remain calm when they saw Tim, he couldn't contain his excitement. Frank beamed from ear to ear as they exchanged pleasantries with Tim. He even appeared to be shaking somewhat. Mike noticed this and placed his hand on Frank's shoulder, asking whether he was all right. Frank admitted that he was all right, just excited, because he is a fan of Tim and his music group. The heartwarming video of Frank emphasizes how much of a missed figure he is on the show. Some fans missed him so badly that they refused to watch the season 25 premiere of American Pickers, which aired in early July. Frank last featured on American Pickers in March 2020, when he took time off to recover from back surgery that resulted in 185 stitches and 2 rods in his spine. Frank shed 65 pounds while off the show, and he also told The Sun that he spent 77 days in Iowa rehab for alcoholism. After that, the former co-host claimed the television network was not straight with him when he attempted to return, despite his desire. During an interview with the United States Sun in 2021, Frank confessed his feud with co-star Mike. He said, "I haven't spoken to Mike in 2 years. He knew my back was messed up, yet he didn't call to see how I was doing. That's just how things are. The show is completely geared for him. I can't even bend that low to show you how much." After being kicked off the program, Frank was placed in custody after suffering a devastating stroke in July 2022, which apparently damaged his decision-making abilities. There are moments in television history that transcend the screen and etch themselves into the hearts of viewers not because of the drama or the spectacle, but because of the simple raw humanity they reveal. One such moment unfolded quietly behind the scenes of American Pickers, a moment so powerful and poignant that those who witnessed it still speak of it in reverent tones. It was the day Mike Wolfe pulled Frank Fritz into a hug one last time before the bond between them was shattered forever, before the show changed, and before a chapter of reality TV came to a Mike and Frank had been the beating heart of American Pickers, crisscrossing the backroads of America hunting for forgotten treasures in dusty barns and crumbling garages. Their chemistry was effortless, their banter natural, honed by decades of genuine friendship. Fans saw them not just as co-hosts, but as brothers, as reflections of a bond that felt increasingly rare in a world too often marked by division and disconnection. Their adventures were about more than rusty bicycles and vintage signage. They were about memory, about nostalgia, about the way the past continues to echo into the present. But as so often happens in life, things began to change beneath the laughter, and the shared victories. Small cracks had started to form. Personal struggles, professional disagreements, and the unrelenting pressure of fame began to pull at the seams of their partnership. Still, there was a time when none of that mattered. A moment before the unraveling, when Mike and Frank stood side by side and remembered who they were and what they meant to each other. It happened during what would turn out to be one of their final shoots together. The day had been long, a marathon of dusty roads and packed barns, and negotiating with cantankerous sellers. The sun was beginning to sink behind a line of distant trees, painting the sky with bruised shades of purple and gold. Frank had just closed a deal on a battered but beautiful motorcycle, a rare find that had them both grinning like kids. Mike clapped him on the back, a familiar gesture of shared triumph. Then, without a word, he pulled Frank into a hug. It was not a dramatic hug, not one meant for cameras or applause. It was a simple human moment, the kind that spoke of years of shared experience, of the long miles driven, of the jokes told over diner breakfasts, of the nights spent nursing beers and dreams. It was a hug that said thank you. It was a hug that said I am proud of you. It was a hug that said even if everything changes, this moment will always be ours. Crew members standing nearby instinctively lowered their cameras, sensing the intimacy of the moment. A few snapped quiet photos from a respectful distance, images that would later become treasured keepsakes among those who loved and worked with the two men. One witness described it as legendary, not because of any grand gesture, but because it was real, unfiltered, and profoundly moving. At the time, no one knew it would be the last real connection between Mike and Frank before the tide of circumstance and misunderstanding swept them apart. Not long after, Frank would step away from the show officially for health reasons, but the behind-the-scenes reality was more complicated than any press release would admit. Tensions had been building, decisions had been made, lines had been drawn. In the end, Frank's departure was framed as a necessity, but to those who knew them, it felt more like a heartbreak. The image of that hug lingered. It lingered for Mike, it lingered for Frank, and it lingered for fans who sensed, even before official announcements were made, that something precious had been lost. People are complicated, relationships are messy. Even the deepest friendships can fall prey to pride, to pain, to the quiet corrosion of time. Yet for one beautiful moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the bond between two men who had spent the better part of their lives chasing stories across America together. In the months and years that followed, Mike continued to helm American Pickers, forging ahead with new faces and new adventures. Frank, meanwhile, faced his own battles, recovering from a devastating stroke, rebuilding his strength, navigating a life that had changed forever. In public statements, Mike often spoke with respect about Frank, expressing sorrow over the way things had unfolded and a deep, enduring hope for his old friend's recovery. Behind the words, though, there was always an undercurrent of loss, a silent tribute to the brotherhood that once was. Fans, too, mourned the change. While they appreciated the new energy brought by other pickers, many admitted that something essential had been lost without Frank's presence, without the dynamic interplay between Mike's measured optimism and Frank's gruff charm. The show felt different, less like a shared journey and more like a solo expedition. The chemistry that had once made American Pickers a cultural phenomenon was irreplaceable, because it had not been created in a casting call or scripted in a production meeting. It had been forged over years of real life. Through it all, the memory of that hug remained a quiet testament to what had been and what perhaps might someday be again. There were rumors now and then, whispers of reconciliation, of phone calls exchanged, of old wounds slowly healing. Nothing official was ever confirmed, but fans clung to hope, because that is what moments like that hug inspire: hope that broken things can be mended, that old friendships can find new life, that the ties that bind us might stretch but not snap. Mike and Frank's story mirrors the very spirit of American Pickers, itself a celebration of the battered and the broken, of things once forgotten brought back to life with patience and love. Their hug on that dusky evening in the Midwest was not just a farewell, it was a promise, a reminder that even amid endings there is grace, that even in loss there can be beauty. Today, as American Pickers continues its journey with new faces and new stories, that legendary moments stands as a touchstone, a reminder of the show's roots and its soul. It reminds fans, and maybe even Mike and Frank themselves, that no matter how far the road twists, or how much the scenery changes, some connections run too deep to be forgotten. They may not be what they once were. The show may have moved on, and life may have carried them down separate paths. But for that moment, they were exactly what they had always been: friends, brothers, pickers, dreamers. And sometimes when the light hits just right, when the road stretches out before us and the air hums with the promise of discovery, it is easy to believe that somewhere out there Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz might find themselves standing side by side, once again ready to pick not just forgotten treasures from the dust of history, but pieces of a friendship too strong and too stubborn to ever be truly lost. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, America Trends 24, and stay with us.